I want to talk about cycles if I can. We don't have a clicker, do we? No. I want to talk about cycles if I can, and why they are predictable. So does everybody recognize that? Some of you have seen this, so I apologize. I'll do it fairly quickly. For those of you that haven't, does everybody recognize what that is? It's a stock market. And the truth is I could have put any stock market up there. It's got a slight logarithmic scale. In other words, this bit's blown up. So from here up to the 2000, from there up, it's normal. Otherwise, you wouldn't see this as spikes. You just see a flat line. So it's scaled, inflation linked, etc. But that's 100 years. What do you see? Everybody see growth? Yeah. Okay. And look, there's also lots of jags, up and downs, but what you should see is that. So does everybody see that? It's magically changed it. And what you should see now is 18 years of up, 14 years of flat, 18 years of up, 14 years of flat. You can go back 300 years to Napoleonic times. Recently, a chap stood up at Google when I was presenting and said, I'm an economics historian, which always worries me when somebody stands up when I put this chart. I'm like, oh, God, what's coming now? And he said, yeah, if you go back to Egypt, the corn prices did the same thing. I went, you can come to every presentation. I love you. Yep, so that's what you should see. Now, in the flat period, if you ask yourself, if you got into business here and got out of business about here, or you got into business here and about here, I said to you, the market's about to go ballistic, what would your belief system tell you? No, it's not. What are you smoking? Like, you're smoking your own socks now. But if you got into business here, and about here I said the market's going to go flat, what would you believe? No. Don't be ridiculous. So unless you've got some way to predict, now I know the old past performance is not a, etc., that people put on. And please here, this is not financial advice. Please don't rush out into the stock market and say, Nick said I should put everything on black. You have to go and do your own advice on that. You just need to look at where you would invest. The reason we show this is this happens 6 to 12 months in front of the economy. So if the markets are going ballistic, when they start, most people are looking at their day job going, I don't understand why the hell the markets would be going ballistic. I'm still laying people off. I'm still struggling to get people through the door. So we'll look at why that cycle does that. But the economy lags 6 to 12 months behind the markets. But they are a predictor of what's going to happen. Does that make sense? So the only, if you're not invested in this, that's fine. You should still be watching this as a predictor of what's going to happen. So the market fell over in June, July, August, September 07, but the economy didn't start to fall over until September 08. I remember seeing the first big report from Volkswagen that said they were cancelling their graduate program for that year, first time they'd ever done it. That was September 08. But the market actually started to fall over in September, October 07. Does that kind of make sense? And there were some really obvious predictors. We predicted that it would fall over in February 07. February 07, when the markets were still doing that. The prediction was it was going to be a W recession, it was going to be horrible, and the indicators were property prices and time to sell property in the US. That was one of the indicators that said the market was going to fall over. So there's a whole bunch of people have since come out and said, oh yeah, we predicted this. Fortunately, our guy that predicted it was filmed and time dated, so it kind of stands the test of time, if you like. So if that's happening now, there's a reason that happens, and there's a cycle. If you Google, those of you that have ever seen one of these, if you Google economic clock, what you'll find is a whole bunch of these. They all say pretty much the same thing. They all tell you that there is a cycle to the whole economy. I was chatting to somebody the other day that said, oh yeah, there's an 18-year property cycle. It goes through this 18-year. What they mean is in the 18-year growth, 14 years flat, 18 years growth, they see that property cycle happen quite dramatically. But what that basically says is the opposite. So top real estate prices are going up, bottom real estate prices are falling. Right-hand side, commodity prices falling, left-hand side, commodity prices rising. So it's the direct polar opposite. There's hundreds of these. This is by an accounting firm called Count. We thought that was really original, but called Count. No, any accountants in the room today? Okay, we can bag the account. Oh, good, gotta be careful. So only one person going to get upset with me if I bag the accountants today. So basically, this is my favorite bit. In England, we do slowdown and gloom. We do doom and gloom better than anywhere else in the world. We have the weather for it. Actually, they do it better in Aberdeen than anywhere else in the world, but they certainly do it better in the UK. I was living in Madrid at the time. My home's still in Madrid. So with blue skies everywhere, I didn't even know there was a recession on. Everybody was still going out to restaurants. Everybody was still sitting in the sunshine. Everybody was still worrying about tomorrow and not today. Like it was a different world. I come back to the UK in 2008 and there's a big gloom over the whole country. It's all falling apart and it's all horrible. So where are we on this clock today, would you think? What do you think? So where do you think? About 8:30, 8 o'clock? How many people think about 8:30? How many people wouldn't put your hand up no matter what I ask? Just checking. So anywhere else? Anybody got a better idea where you think we are? So most people think 8 actually. Now, remember, what's happening is the economy is following behind the markets, and we're in an interesting period at the moment, which I'll talk about shortly. We're just moving from hesitant, uneven recovery to general recovery. Now, in hesitant, uneven recovery, what do most people see? When they look at that quadrant, and you see 3 words, what do most people see, especially in England? Hesitant, uneven. What's the word they miss? Recovery. Because we're English. So we don't see the really good, exciting stuff. We see the, oh my goodness me, it's hesitant, uneven. And that means companies starting, companies stopping, people going bust, good news, bad news. If you looked in the paper and circled all the good news with orange and all the bad news with green, you'd have about 50-50. Yeah, if there's more orange than green, we're in recession. If there's more green than orange, we're in recovery. It's a really good economic tool, orange pen, green pen. Let's go and have a quick look at the papers. You'd be surprised how accurate it is. So if we go into general recovery, which businesses struggle when the market suddenly takes off? You've got one of the issues that you put up there. Yeah, the ones that have no cash. So the big businesses, so there's a hesitant, uneven recovery where it starts, stop, start, stop, start, stop. As the business goes into general recovery, the world starts to accelerate, and all of those people that don't have any cash start to run out. So you start to see big corporate failures about 5 years into that 18-year run. Is this making sense? Suddenly things start to pick up and I don't have the cash. You'll see the big retail failures on the quarters, January, March, June, and September. Why? Good guess, I hadn't thought of that one, but that's not the reason why. Why do they go? Big retail, 25 stores, 75 stores across the country. Rental, all done quarterly. It doesn't matter if you're with 17 different landlords, all landlords use the same quarters, January, March, June, and September. So if you've got 75 stores across, even if you're with 5 different landlords, all of your rent becomes due on the quarter. And if you haven't got the cash for the next 3 months, you're stuffed. So that's when you start seeing Toys R Us go in, House of Fraser, all of those, and you listen to what the conversation is about. It's all negotiations with landlords. Now, I believe, this is my theory, that the reason is that most people who have big property portfolios are also heavily into the stock market, and they see the markets moving, and they start going, ho, 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 here we go, and they put rents up because they know what's coming. And the retail sector is one of the last places to benefit from a recovery. So it runs 18 months behind the stock market. So the rents are going up today and I'm not going to be able to afford it for 18 months. And if only I could get all of the retail sector and all the landlords to talk to one another and stop doing stupid stuff like that, we wouldn't have all these big corporate failures. That's just my theory. It's not tested yet, but that's what I think is happening. So interesting? So the question is, are you looking at this stuff to give you a guide as to what you should be doing in your business? Because if we're going into general recovery, are you ready for general recovery? That would be my question. Does that kind of make sense? Yes or no?